Hello everyone, I hope you guys are great. In today's video, I will be talking about semi-tilting arm suspension and I will show how to design a semi-tilting arm suspension geometry. So watch the video till the end and please subscribe to my channel. So a semi-tilting arm suspension is an independent rear suspension which is mostly used in rear axle of the vehicles. This suspension type is an advanced version of tilting arm suspension. As you can see, these are some typical example of like how a semi-tilting arm suspension looks like. And yeah, so in a tilting arm, the pivot axis is collinear with the horizontal axis, and whereas the pivot axis of semi-tilting arm is inclined with respect to horizontal axis to nearly about 25 degree to 50 degrees. This inclination provides rolling effect on the rear axle and thus generating camber on both wheels while turning. This helps in preventing the understeer as the vehicle would want to turn more. So therefore, it is helpful to have semi-tilting arm suspension. If you have a performance vehicle or you want to turn your vehicle sharper, because semi-tilting arm suspension incorporates oversteering characteristic in the vehicle. So here we will see the second segment of our video where I will show like how we can create semi-tilting arm suspension geometry. So for that, let's open the older file, and here I will delete this folder, and this suspension geometry of HM will also be deleted. So now let's work on the rear box and let's modify it. We are modifying the base here so that we can accommodate the semi-tilting arm design. Semi-tilting arm has an angled is at an angle with horizontal axis, so we need to create space for that along with the chassis. We can hide the front suspension geometry. So let's again work on this base of the rear suspension box. So as you can see, like we are creating a lower members in such a way that our tailing arm can be nicely fitted, and also like we are making these slant line so that it helps in the movement of the tailing arm and makes the pivot axis better. So we are pretty much done with our modified rear box. You can see now let's make our knuckle. This is the old knuckle for H-arm suspension geometry. Here we will make a new one for the semi-tilting arm. This is any arbitrary design, like a simple design, you can take let's dimension it as per our convenience. Okay, so that dotted line represents the spindle of it. Now we are making the body of the our rear knuckle. In semi-tilting arm suspension geometry, the knuckle needs to be very not very big, but like it should have space because here we are designing semi-tilting arm, and also two control links will be coming here, so it needs to have space for clamps and for mounting as well. So now it looks complete. Okay, so now let's move forward, and now we will create the sketch for control links. So we are here adding two control links because they help in adjusting the camber and adjusting the toe angle. So it is beneficial for like if you are adding it with semi-tailing of suspension, it helps like in controlling the various vehicle dynamics parameter of the car. So yeah, like these are the short lines are the mounts of it, and the middle longer line is the control link. We can add a Heim joint or control rods like to control the length and to connect them with the chassis and knuckle mount. And the orientation of the mount should be within the axis of the control link. Like in a way, they should be linear. Yes, so like all these three lines should be linear, and similarly, it will be a better design if you are able to make both of them parallel, because like they both will like reciprocate or let's say travel during jounce and bounce condition together and simultaneously also. So yeah, you can we must give them yeah, like this parallel, so that movement is very okay, and like there is no redundancy. Alright, so it is now complete. Now we will sketch for semi-tailing arm, and yeah, make sure to like create separate sketches and name them as well. So now let's open a new sketch for the semi-tailing arm. Yeah, so that slant line which we created earlier, we will be using here. So this from the side plane, like kind of side view of the knuckle, we created a line where we are creating a mount, and the middle one is the semi-tailing arm, and we have created another shorter line for like pivot clamp, as a pivot clamp on the chassis of on the rear box basically, and these three must be collinear in direction. Yes, so adding that relation, yes, it looks nice, and make the rear one not to be a solid line, so that we can distinguish what are clamps or what are pivot clamps or what is our main trailing arm. So exit the sketch now and name it. Now most of the suspension is done. Now we will add shock absorber. So here like you can either add mount shock absorber directly to trailing arm, or you can mount it on the knuckle as well. If you mount your shock absorber on the trailing arm, it will be, you need to make it very you need to have a very good design and use stronger material like steel, so it will add weight. So you can save that if you can mount your shock absorber on the knuckle. So we are done with that. Let's make some few changes and like so that we can properly define our trailing arm. Yeah, for like line of force, it should look like a line when viewed from side view, yeah, like this. And yeah, make sure to define your sketches all time, because if you are not defining them, they can get deviated if you have done any certain changes, certain movement. So our left hand side is done for the trailing arm suspension. We have added semi-tailing arm suspension and two control links, and we have added knuckle and shock absorber as well. And we will club them in a single folder and name that folder as rear suspension. So yeah, that is can make semi-tailing arm suspension geometry. So yeah, that is now we can activate the front suspension as well, or let's say like we can create for right hand side. So yeah, this is a time lapse I have created, and it is a very pretty quickly happening, and yeah, it is already done, I guess. Yeah, so for both sides our suspension geometry is done, and yeah, so yeah, this is the way like we can create the suspension of semi-tailing arm suspension geometry with an option of adding control link as well. Now we can activate our front suspension as well to view them. So that's the video. Thank you.